Why do white people code switch? I wrote an article about it some time ago, maybe about 6 or 7 months ago. Put it out in the atmosphere. Wanted to hear what would come back from people, and I got such great feedback from white people all over the world. Through LinkedIn, through just straight up email. People emailing me directly because the idea of the article was to engage people, was to invite people to a conversation about white people code switching, so that we can start talking about the side effects and how the side effects have impacted all of us. Oftentimes, we don't think that what impacts someone else, especially those people that are a victim of something, impacts us the same way, but it has a residual impact, like a blowback. And the blowback in society from racism is that if you cause one group to suppress themselves, to be ashamed of who they are, and you work on that for years, that will eventually come home to, the chickens will come home to roost, so to speak. You will begin to start experiencing the same psychological struggles as the people that are being oppressed by that particular system. In this case, we're talking about racism. So when I put that article out, a lot of people of color weren't that happy with me about putting it out, because a lot of people of color are still not decided whether or not they think white people deserve to heal from the side effects of racism. I'm of the proponent that we all deserve to heal. We all need to heal. If we're going to bring an end to racism, healing is going to be one of those things that has to happen in order for that to come about. So to do that, we have to dig into some of the things that impact us. So when I thought about myself as a black man, racialized as black in America, and the messages I received and how I didn't want to be who I was because of racism, because of so many negative messages subconsciously downloaded into my, what I would say, subconscious programming. I didn't want to be me for a long time. So I started genuflecting, as they say, mimicking what I thought was the behavior and personification of what it meant to be white. I would even hear messages from my great grandmother and my grandmother about talking white, how important it was for me to learn how to talk white. So I started learning or trying to talk white, whatever that really meant. But every time I did, what it would do is it would cause a dissonance to develop in me. I remember one particular incident when I was 8 years old. And this is, I'm getting ready to share with you something from my past childhood. So we're watching a movie with my dad and my two younger brothers, watching a horror movie, which we hated to watch with him, because the horror movie would have, of course, nudity, profanity, and a lot of killing, right? And he, for some reason, wanted us to watch these movies with him. It was his way of bonding, I think, with us. And here it was, during this time, if y'all don't remember, there was a long wire remote. So the remote is not like it is today, wireless. It had a long wire that connects to the VCR. And every time a sex scene would come on, he would try to stop. He would try to press stop to stop it or fast forward it. And we'd be like, man, why do you keep doing this? It says right on the box when you bought the movie, because back then it was VCRs. It says right on the box, nudity, profanity, and violence. These are the three things that you picked up off the shelf and now you don't want us to see. So we were very tense sitting down watching this movie with him, because we knew there was going to be some cursing. And more importantly, we knew there was going to be some sex scenes, some nudity for sure. So we were learning to be very uncomfortable about nudity, but that's a whole nother story, a whole nother part of the story. Well, lo and behold, the phone rings. My dad gets up, answers the phone. And when he answers the phone, everything about his persona changes from the guy that we know. Now, first of all, let me say this. My dad had a way of saying to people, talk cornbread to me, boy. That meant keep it simple, don't use no big words, and make it where I can understand. So he was the cornbread talker. Talk cornbread everywhere he go, no matter who he met, cornbread. On this particular occasion, he goes to answer the phone. And when he answers the phone, I could tell that it's somebody I'm not aware of on the other end of the line, because he begins to code switch. Hello, Yes. And he's making certain faces and he's expressing certain things through his mouth. And I'm sitting down and looking at my two brothers like, what is going on? It was like somebody had overtook his body, like he had been possessed by some spirit or something. After a few minutes on the phone, he slams the phone down, comes back and sat down next to us, put the movie back on. But I could see that he's disturbed. He's upset. And I didn't understand why he was upset. The phone rings again. It's the same guy who he's talking to before. Lo and behold, it was this white guy who owned the grocery store that gave him a line of credit to buy groceries before he got paid, and he hadn't paid him yet. I didn't know any of this. This is background information. So he gets back on the phone, and he's once again code switching. He's pretending what he thinks is being white, sounding proper and enunciating in a certain way. And we knew this because of the language people used in the community. So he's upset now. He's real upset. He's steaming. He's steaming, I surmise, because he demonstrated this, what he would consider a weakness in front of his boys. He abandoned his true self to become something else, to please someone else in front of his boys. So he points at me and he says, get in the car with me, boy. You can come take a ride with me. And he tells me to sit in the back seat. I'm like, oh my God. Is my daddy asking me to go fight with him against somebody? I thought he was going to fight somebody and he wanted me to come with him. My heart is beating like a drum in the back seat. I'm wondering why I'm in the back seat of the car. So we pull up to the little corner grocery store. He gets out, and as he gets out to go confront the guy or pay the guy, I can literally see my daddy start shrinking in his statue, and the way he stands. His pride was reduced as he code switched in front of this guy, in front of me. We never talked about it. Never talked about it. He got back in the car, didn't say anything. He was steaming, he was upset, and never told me what was going on. It would take years and years and years before I would come to understand that that was code switching, and my dad was doing it out of survival, to feed us, to make sure that we'd have something to eat during tough times. So I understood when I got older and studied this whole construct called racism and its impact. Then I started wondering, does it impact white people the same way? For different reasons, maybe not survival or maybe for survival, where people will leave their true authentic self to take on an inauthentic imposter expression. Because when we take on an imposter expression, we are code switching, just for a different reason. But at the root, it's still rooted in the same thing. We are not cool with who we are. We think that who we are is not enough. We think that the way we express ourselves, the way we articulate who we are, is not enough. So we have to become something else. And every time you try to become something else, for whatever the reason is, you code switch. Code switching, see, you got to understand, the reason why we call it code switching, because each individual person is unique, having their own unique code in the universe. We are unique, so we stand out individually because of that code. When you switch that code, that means you are trying to take on another expression that is not your own. And when we do that, we have no power. It's like going from power to no power by simply trying to impress someone else or please someone else, compete with someone else, prove something to someone else. This is what our ego gets us to do. When the minute it sees our authentic self as not good enough. So white people have continued to write back and express that they've experienced code switching. They suffer with code switching, imposter syndrome. All those things are connected to it. I want to continue the conversation. I want you to write me, email me, call me. Let's talk about this. Let's bring this to a national front. Talk about how code switching impacts white people, so that white people can see and understand better how code switching impacts people of color. I'm Mahdi, co-director and co-founder of the Human Solidarity Project, and I approve this message.